Let me tell you why you're here.
I've seen things.
Oh my god.
Whoa, yeah! You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Guaranteed to jack you up.
Yo, what's going on, my dudes? It's LamarStaysWeird coming to you out of sight, out of mind once again. We're going to be talking about a movie that is near and dear to my heart. One of my favorite movies of all time, Blade Runner. Now, I know this isn't a movie for everyone, but I love it so much, and it makes sense that it has to be the very first movie that I talk about. I mean, it's where I got the name of the podcast, you know? Like, come on. Now, this was my girlfriend's idea that this should be my very first movie because I was having a hard time contemplating exactly what my first movie was going to be. And she put me on it. I had a day off, watched it, and I just felt amazing the whole entire time having the house to myself and watching this on some beautiful 60-inch TV. Not bragging or anything, but I love it. I love a sound system and I love a very nice TV to watch movies on at home. I know this movie was back in the 80s and there shouldn't really be any spoilers, but in the off chance that this is spoilery for some people, and the first little bit, I'm just going to be giving like a quick rundown of exactly what the movie is and what's kind of going on, give like a little synopsis, and then I can start going into later. Now, a little background info. This movie is directed by Ridley Scott, also known for the Alien movies, starring Harrison Ford. We've already talked about him in the last episode. This movie came out in 1982. It has had multiple edits. It didn't do that well in the theaters, unfortunately, but there were so many different cuts of this movie. It is wild. And they're all like pretty different from what I've heard. I've only ever seen the final cut, which is the main one that you can find on any streaming service. That's kind of like the go-to actual movie, and I think it's perfect. I love it. I'm so glad I saw this one. I've been tempted to watch the others, but I don't know. I see a lot of times it's not really worth it, so I might not put in the time. It's held on this very nice pedestal as being an extremely influential movie in the cyberpunk and sci-fi genre. It is amazing and just really good storytelling all around. But of course, we got our leading man, Harrison Ford, and then we have the legend, Rutger Hauer. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2019, which is oddly poetic because the movie takes place in the year 2019, so it was bittersweet in a way. It's like I wasn't happy about it, but it's like, man, if there was any other way, or if there was any other time for that to happen, it was during his. It was the same year of his most iconic character. Then we have Edward James Olmos, which I remember him from the Selena movie. He is the dad. He is Abraham. So there's also that right there. And then this one kind of blew my mind. I didn't really pick up on it until today. I guess it like jolted my mind. Joe Turkel, another person that we lost very recently. I believe it was back in 2022. Respect to him as well. He was the bartender in The Shining, another one of my favorite movies. And it's like, damn, that's pretty awesome. A bit of what this movie is about for the people who don't happen to know, and that's perfectly fine. It's all good. That's why I'm here. That's why you're listening, hopefully. So the Tyrell Corporation, it's a corporation very similar to By and Large, Wally's By and Large, where it was kind of like the leading corporation that oddly enough just had a monopoly and was kind of influencing how humanity was going to work, how like the decisions being made. It is the company. Of course, for the 80s, it takes place really far into the future. This is supposed to be where we're terraforming other planets and building communities on these planets as well. And that's where the replicants come in. Replicants are androids made by the Tyrell Corporation to do all that slave labor. The replicants that we are following in this one are part of the Nexus 6. They are a specific generation that is supposed to be superior in strength, agility, and they're also as intelligent as the people who made them. That is another thing. What kicks off this movie, we don't get to see it, unfortunately. I would totally love to see that one day, whether it be in some sort of animation form, short film form, or even just another movie. But as they state in the movie, it was a bloody mutiny. That is a quote, a bloody mutiny by the Nexus 6. They were on an off-world colony. They turned against their employers. because they wanted freedom. So they got off planet or off world and they got their asses on the way back to Earth. Now, it's unknown to the detectives at this time of what is going on and what exactly the replicants are doing back in Los Angeles and on Earth. Now, there is a special group that hunts replicants. They're called Blade Runners. It is a specific field of detectives that are directly involved with anything replicant related. That's where our hero, Deckard, comes in, and he is brought back into the Force against his own wishes to hunt down these 4 remaining replicants that escaped. And out of those 4 replicants, we have Roy Batty, Pris, Leon, and Zora. Roy Batty is the leader of the group. Pris is a pleasure bot. Leon, he was just there to load ammunitions. And with Zora, if I remember correctly, she's a bit of a mercenary. Now on Earth, replicants are illegal. So this is where Blade Runner comes in. Their main job is to shoot, kill, that's it. But they don't call it killing, they call it retiring, because you got to think, technically these are employees of the human race. They're meant to just further humanity's expansion in the universe. I don't believe this is spoilery at all, but replicants, they only have a 4-year lifespan. Because it was theorized how advanced that the Nexus 6 group is, that they would eventually evolve emotional responses of their own and start to become more human-like, and they don't want that. They're robots meant to not freak you out. That's why they look human-like, and to just do the jobs that they wanted, a reflection of humanity. So that's what they got. They did a carbon copy of humans, but not making them human at all. But they were worried about these evolving and becoming more like us. Like, people don't like replicants. They even have a slur for them. So prejudice, racism, xenophobia, all that stuff is still very prominent. And they refer to them as skin jobs. Now, Roy Batty is leading this mission because he wants more life. They believe themselves to be alive, and they are fully aware of what they are, and they want to live. They want to be more than just slaves. They want to be more than just androids. I feel like that's super relatable because that's something everyone wants. Nobody wants to die. Some people don't think about it every day, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna die. Some people, they live it up to the fullest, knowing every minute counts, and a lot of us take it for granted. But these are people that know that they're gonna die, that they don't have very long. And usually with that lights a fire under you. That gives you some sort of motivation. Like, yo, I gotta go. I gotta start moving. I gotta do stuff. I want to experience things, make memories, leave a mark, something. And that's exactly what these people want to do. They just want to live, laugh, and love, man. That's what they want to do, and I'm all for it. They're not bad people or anything. And I say people because I believe they're people, because they believe that they are people. Think about it. Think about it, man. What's weird is with this movie, it's kind of like it's tackling the same argument as abortion rights. And I'm not going to get super political or anything, but just how the whole argument, like, oh, the fetus is a person, it's a living being. Oh, the fetus is not a person, not a living being, blah, 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 blah. It's all those different things. The same things can be said about replicants. They have heartbeats, they have their own thoughts, they do evolve to have their own feelings. So it's like, where do you draw the line that they are not real? And this is something that's going to become more and more prominent as AI starts to become more ingrained nowadays. It's honestly weird. Movies like this are super influential to our history of a species. It's weird, way back in the 80s and most likely before, that we're thinking of, oh yeah, we're gonna have robots. They're gonna, like, we're gonna create our own downfall. We're gonna create our replacements. And it's like, we know that as a society, but we're still doing it because we're like, oh yeah, we're gonna follow science fiction because it has a lot of good ideas. A lot of these ideas that people have, theoretically, they're possible. Let's develop some scientific practices and move on from there. And guess what? A lot of it has, man. You got to think, back then, carrying around devices, talking on your watch, general earpieces that everyone has to communicate with one another, video calling and stuff like that. That wasn't real. It's hard to think about that. None of that shit was real, man. And now it is. Now it is. And it's like, yo, we see the roadmap in the movies. which is kind of cool, but then also kind of sad because a lot of these dystopian cyberpunk movies, the environment's sad and it's messed up because I'm kind of conditioned in a way. I'm conditioned to think it's beautiful, seeing the city that has all these major corporations just shoving ads all up in your face. Like, hey, yeah, buy our stuff, consume, consume, consume. Capitalism everywhere. I think it's beautiful and I shouldn't. We should think it's overbearing. We should think, God, man, this sucks. We need to get away from this. But we think it's beautiful. We see bright lights and we're like, ah, amazing. Like that's what we are. And in the movies, it's supposed to give that feeling, but because these movies are so good, and it's not just movies, these movies, games and stuff, it's so good. You look at it like, wow, this is amazing, this is breathtaking. Look what society could be. Look how great it could all look with all this neon electricity, all this power to show the true beauty that we can bring to life nowadays. And back then it's like, no, that's they're thinking, oh man, this is the worst nightmare, constantly being given ads and stuff. And of course, a lot of us feel that way with YouTube, Spotify, stuff like that. Not shitting on any specific apps, but just those things where they just force ads and everyone hates ads. Ad blockers are such a thing. But man, would we give to be in a cyberpunk city and look at everyone trying to sell us something? I 100% would. I would be like, please shove your ramen noodles in my face. Like, oh, there's some Pokemon shit? All right, cool. Give me a big ass neon sign of Pikachu or something. I won't like Pokemon, but you know what? I would like looking at that fucking sign, man. I would think that's such a vibe. 100%. It could be anything. I really don't care. It could be a sex shop with a giant dildo. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want a dildo, but damn, that looks really fucking cool, man. Like that's how I see it. Like, I don't know. They could advertise like the hugest anal beads in the world. And I'm like, dude, that shit looks like a planetary system up there, man. Like that looks beautiful. If you take a picture in front of that and kind of have it out of focus, it looks like I'm on a Star Wars ship right now. And I just have the map of the solar system behind me. That's what I would be thinking. I would not be thinking, oh yeah, damn, they're trying to sell me something. You suck. Stop trying to take my money. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm saying. I'm getting off track, but I think I covered a bit of what the movie is. Hopefully I did it well enough. But no, it's an amazing movie. It's a serious tone. It's a neo-noir film, and it is great. I call this one a film, and this is where it sounds pretentious because, man, it is great. I fell in love with a movie. That's what it is. Film. Fell in love with movie. I was getting all giddy watching the movie because I'm just like, man, this movie is so beautiful, man. I love this movie. The music, everything. The music is so good. It has some nice, really nice, soft music here and there. I love it. And the city looks beautiful, even with the flames sparking in the sky. And the lens flares, man, the flying cars. I swear, I think they probably use the same lens flare on each car that passes by. But you know what? It puts a smile on my face every single time I see a lens flare in this movie. Not the Michael Bay style lens flares, but man, the lens flares in this movie, they make me smile. I love it. It's the little things in life. And it was a fine touch by the special effects department. A major shout out to the special effects department because quite a few of the buildings are miniatures. And it was all filmed practical, all these little lights and everything. And these things were pretty much almost as tall as I am. And I'm 5'6", you know? So, like, yeah, I want to see a building about my size and look way more beautiful than I do. Hell yeah, man. I would totally love to see that in person. All right, so now let's get into the movie. I literally have it pulled up on the side, playing again one more time, and man, those damn lens flares, man, and the eyes. This movie is heavy on the eyes because you're taking it in. The eyes are the window to the soul. Of course, everyone knows that statement, but here they show the eyes a lot because it gives away replicants as well. There is a way that the light reflects in their eyes that they have this little red circle. Their iris is red and it highlights. That is a giveaway of a replicant, but there's also another way to identify a replicant, and it's by taking a void comp test. It's a test of a bunch of questions and try to get an emotional response out of someone. You're looking into their eye and you're trying to figure out exactly how they feel about something, if they react to something or not. And that's what we start this movie off with. It is another Blade Runner trying to identify more replicants in this new department. They were told to go to this location. Hey, there's a bunch of new workers. Try to see if any of them are replicants. And that's what happens, man. That's where we get introduced to Leon. He's the first replicant that we see in the movie, and this boy just plays dumb. He knows that they're trying to ask him a bunch of questions, but he's asking a bunch of questions. He's just trying to derail the conversation and the line of questioning. Once it starts to get a little too complicated, we see a shot, you see his eye light up a bit. The whole time he's like slowly moving a gun. You don't see it, but you can tell by his movement, he's moving a gun, and he just blows this dude away. 2 shots, boom, boom, like gets him, just puts him through the wall. I assume because this other Blade Runner was killed, it gets thrown on Deckard's desk, pretty much. They go out and find him, and they're like, hey, you got to come in. He doesn't really want to. They're like, all right, you're under arrest. You have to come with us. I'm like, fine, I'll go, sure. The under arrest part, it goes into a theory later that I will talk about. There's a few signs I still believe in this theory, even though I think it's been confirmed not to be true or whatever, but I don't know. I like the idea in my head. So Deckard gets brought in, he gets told about the mission, find all these replicants so that way the city can feel safe again. And he does have a partner, Gaff. That's the guy Edward James Olmos is playing. He has a big thing with origami. Pretty much every scene that he's in, you see him making some little stick figure or an animal of some sort. I see him as the duality of man. He loves to create, but he is also there to destroy. That is his job. His job is to destroy, but his passion is to create. And oftentimes, maybe it could be vice versa. And I think that's exactly what he's there to represent. He's not in the movie a whole lot because him and Deckard, they're 2 people that like to work alone. So that's why they're partners. They just stay separated a lot of the time. And I have another theory as to why. That's going to be part of the theory later. So try to remember that. These 2 people want to work alone. They stay away from each other pretty much because they have their own shit going on. Deckard gets introduced to all the people. They give him a good rundown of everyone, of all the replicants, exactly who he's looking for. And so on his next step, he's like, hey, let me go visit the Tyrell Corporation. Let me go talk to this dude, try to figure out some stuff. This is where we get introduced to Rachel. Rachel is the eventual love interest of Deckard. She's the very first person Deckard comes across, and they start talking about the owl that's sitting in their main room. All the animals that you will see in this movie, there's not too much, but the actual animals you will see, he will ask, is it real? Because that is another thing about this sad future is a lot of animals are extinct. And so they're fake. They're also replicated. I don't think they're referred to as replicants, but they are artificial. I believe that is exactly what they call them. But it's sad that that's what the future is. And in this movie, it could just be because it's LA. I've never been to LA. I don't know. Of course, it's just a concrete jungle to me. But of course, it's just a concrete jungle to me, but there are no trees. You do not see a single tree in this movie, and I'm pretty sure that is on purpose. You get to hear about it in the sequel, Blade Runner 2049, we'll eventually talk about one day. But yeah, there are no trees, and the only tree you see in that movie, that I recall, it's fucking dead. It's a dead tree. And it's a big deal because some people are like, oh shit, it's a tree. And I'm like, yeah, it's a tree, but it's dead. There's no leaves or anything. It's gray. It's dull. There's nothing there. But you know what? Some people are like, oh shit, tree, real wood, like that's a thing. Wood is another thing. See, that's going into Blade Runner 2049. I'm so sorry. That's giving you the idea. It's all concrete neon. It is a concrete neon jungle. That's exactly the location of this. Now, going back to Rachel and Deckard, they sit and chit-chat for a bit, and then eventually Tyrell Corp comes out. And, of course, he's familiar with the Blade Runners. I would imagine he knows exactly the type of people that are out there hunting his work. Tyrell notices that he has a void contest with him. And he's like, hey, before I let you test it on anything, I want to see a negative. Test it on Rachel. He proceeds to test it on Rachel, and after a few questions, she's responding pretty well. But halfway through some of those questions, it is when now the camera is placed in a certain way, you can see that her eyes are reflective. The audience, and I believe Deckard at the same exact time, notices she's a replicant maybe. Of course he can tell, but another part of the test is seeing those emotional responses. So while she's smoking a cigarette, her eyes are just glowing, and I love this glow effect that they do. If I remember correctly, how they pulled it off, they just had like another light off to the side in a certain angle, depending on where they were filming and how they were filming it, it would shine into the actor's eyes and it would give that reflective thing. These aren't edited in post. These are practical right then and there. And to me, that is awesome. That is an incredible idea to give away visually, showing, not telling, that somebody is a replicant to the audience. That is awesome. That is beautiful storytelling and directing right there. But he proceeds to ask her a bunch of questions, and he has a hard time figuring out if she's a replicant or not. It's not until the very end that he starts to, and that's not common for replicants. And even Tyrell brings that up after he dismisses Rachel from the room. And that's where Deckard's like, she's a replicant, but she doesn't know. He's like, correct. Tyrell's not a fan of the fact that another one of his creations was sorted out because she is a prototype. She is a prototype of the Nexus 7, the next generation, to be, quote, more human than human. That's what he's wanting to achieve. So he's not too thrilled about it. He hides it because it just shows that he failed at what he was trying to create. And another thing I want to point out, the whole time, and this is another visual storytelling and another thing that you start to discover if you pay attention to the movie, Deckard treats her like a person the whole time. The moment they start interacting, he treats her like a woman. He's very gentlemanlike in his own kind of way because he is like a noir detective. So obviously you could kind of piece together how that type of character is. And when he's talking to Tyrell, he does refer to her as she. But the moment he knows that she's a replicant, automatically he only refers to her as it by asking, how does it not know what it is? And to me, the way he says that, it's supposed to stick out. It is supposed to be like, yo, that thing is less than human. I'm not going to give her human pronouns. That thing, it, is not real. So once Deckard asks that question, Tyrell goes and tells him, yeah, we're in the business of making more than human-like androids. He wants to make people. This man is trying to be like God. God has been on this pedestal for as long as we can remember as a species, and man only ever wants to be close to God. They want to be the most influential thing out there. They want to form humanity. They want to craft a world. That's what a lot of men, or that's what a lot of characters crave in sci-fi and other genres when they try to have this larger than life. I can do whatever I want. I can create whatever I want. I am godlike. I am closer to God than anyone. They're always trying to reach this pedestal, and of course, it's always out of reach. Obviously, he fails at what he was trying to do, but it doesn't stop him from trying to chase that. What does he do that's different from the Nexus 6? The Nexus 6 were just created. That's it. They're not good with their emotions. It's kind of like a toddler. They're smart. They're able to operate on their own, but none of the learning is there. They just do. And then they go off of, I guess you could say, primal instincts, because they do eventually evolve and crave and want more. So they do learn for themselves later. But imagine you're not you. Imagine you didn't have a past and you're just an adult now. Like, I'm about to be 27. I can't imagine not having the past that I have, and I'm just 27. I have a job, I have a girlfriend, I have family. I got things to do, you know? I can't imagine just automatically diving into those types of responsibilities and not really knowing anything. But you do at the same time, which is weird. All the emotion is gone. Only the logical sense. And I'm a very logical person, way more logical than I am emotional. And even I can't comprehend of being strictly logical. It's something I can't comprehend. So what they do different is they gave Rachel memories. They gave Rachel the memories of Tyrell's niece. They gave her experience. They gave her emotional growth. And that's why she was able to kind of fool that test all the way up until the end, because she had previous emotional responses. So that baffles, that pretty much kind of breaks the mind of Deckard. But then he goes back to work. He goes back to doing exactly what he needs to do. Find these other 4 replicants. Leon had a pad. He mentioned it in the interrogation that they had earlier before he killed the other Blade Runner. And Leon's place is a bit of a party pad. I guess this is where everyone was kind of staying, you know, hiding out after just running away from somewhere and probably not having too much cash or anything like that. After doing a little more detective work, Deckard finds a scale. And like I said, animals aren't too common, so I was like, all right, we can go find that. He stumbles upon some Polaroids. And that's another visual storytelling point, in my opinion, and I would say rightfully so, because these people only have 4 years to live, but they take Polaroids of them lounging around, hanging out. He's making memories, and he has these hidden, so obviously this is something Leon cherishes. Just like how we love taking selfies nowadays. Nowadays, you can't find anybody who won't record or take pictures or something. I'm that guy in a group. If I'm hanging out with a bunch of friends and stuff, yeah, I want to remember this. I want to solidify it in a digital way or something. Yes, I'm going to remember it, but I want something else there. I'll post about it or something because I like seeing the good times that I have with my friends. I cherish the moments that I have with all the people that I have near and dear in my life, and I like to look back on it sometimes. I put up stories for me, not for anyone else to see. I do it so I can look back on my day and I'm like, you know what? I really did enjoy my day. We fast forward a little bit more. I'm going to be saying fast forward a lot. We get to actually meet Roy Batty. Him and Leon go find the eye maker. I don't really know his name in the movie, but he's the guy that makes the eyes for the replicants. Obviously, you can't just go see one of the most powerful men in the world, so they're trying to find their way. They start at the bottom of the chain and try to work up and find people that can give them the answers of how to get in, how to get there, how to get to him. They're trying to find God before God finds them. These people have a timer. They don't even know how long. They don't know anything. They just know that they're disposable. So they're trying to figure that out as quickly as possible so that way they could just enjoy life. They want to live, laugh, and love, man. That's what I like. You feel for these people. It really puts you in that mindset. A lot of people don't really try to think about these things. But yeah, man, one day this is going to be a conversation we're going to have. AI is only getting better and better by the day. AI, androids, technology, today is the worst it will be. Whatever's developing now is at its worst, or it's not at its best. If I want to word it that way, if that one makes more sense to you guys. So it's only gonna get better. 20 years down the line, who knows, man? There might be another me walking around that's an android that I was able to purchase and like dip my own mind into and create like my own best friend or something like that. We'll never know. But if I did predict that, holy shit. I want a pay cut. If we fast forward a bit more, we come across Deckard. After a day of investigating, it's hard to seem like a day because we see no sunlight in this fucking movie. It's just nothing doom and gloom, rain and pain, bro. That's all it is. Rain and emotional pain. So he's headed home after a long day, and there's somebody else hiding in the elevator with him. It's Rachel, and he's visibly freaked out because she is a replicant. She's an advanced replicant. He can kind of tell she's not a danger, but it's the fact he's conditioned to be afraid and perceive them as a threat. So he automatically whips out his gun and he's asking, what are you doing here? She said, well, he was not happy with me after the whole test thing, so he kind of kicked me out. And she starts to have her suspicions that she's a replicant, but she also doesn't believe that she is because she has memories, she has feelings. She believes she's real, but she wasn't human enough for Tyrell. But he slams the door in her face. He wants nothing to do with it. He wants to stay away. But of course, he opens it up because I feel like even he's conflicted. He can kind of tell. So he lets her in, kind of reluctantly, but he does. A little piece of him is telling him to do it. She's there to prove her humanity to him. She offers him a Polaroid of her and her mother, and he doesn't even really look at it. And then he starts asking her about memories. Like, oh, do you remember this? Do you remember this? And she starts to. And then eventually, she's finishing the story that he's saying. He's like, yeah, those are Tyrell Niece's memories. They're not yours. And she begins to cry. It is like a bit of a powerful scene, or at least I see it that way. Because I see this film through rose-colored lenses. She's visibly hurt, and her humanity is kind of fading in front of her. So she's trying to fake it and hide it, but she can't hide the emotions that she's feeling. And so she begins to cry. And I think he tries to walk it back in his own way. Like, oh yeah, no, it was a bad joke. He says it like in a serious tone, as if almost he doesn't really mean it. Like in the way he's just trying to comfort somebody he doesn't really want to comfort. It's like, oh yeah, no, dude, you're fine. Like, it's all good. Yeah. We're cool. We're cool. I didn't hit you hard, Like, that's kind of what it was. But then he tries to lean in and kind of really stress, like, no, I am sorry. Like I really am. And she's crying and stuff, and he can hardly look at her because of that. He's obviously conflicted, and you can kind of tell, I don't know what to do. Like, I hurt you, and I can see that, but it's like, I know you're a replicant, so why? And he doesn't know what to do. Obviously, this is back in the 80s, and even to this day, men still have a hard time with sharing their feelings. Hey, if you're a man out there, it's perfectly okay, dude. Show your feelings. It's okay to talk about it. If you need to talk to somebody, talk to somebody. I just want to give that little point right there. But he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to show emotion or deal with emotions. So he's like, hey, want a drink? Like, that's kind of like the guy thing to do. is offer a drink, offer somebody a drink. Like, hey, yeah, man, drink it away. You'll feel better. A little medicine right there. But after that, she doesn't take the drink and just leaves. I mean, her feelings are hurt, man. She's finding out she's not human. Her world is a lie. I can't imagine finding out something like that. Once she leaves, then we see Pris. We finally get to meet Pris. This is the pleasure bot. She's roaming around the streets. She's trying to go run into somebody. She's trying to run into another bioengineer by the name of JF Sebastian. That's the name that they got from the eye guy. So now they're here. She's waiting outside his place to kind of accidentally run into him. She's pretty much playing the lost little puppy. Like, hey, yeah, I'm kind of lost. It's cold, rainy. And he just sees a pretty face. Yeah, sure, I'll take care of you. You can come in, blah, 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 blah. And they get comfortable with each other a little bit, talking. He almost doesn't let her in, but she has to kind of not fight her way in, but she tries to force more conversation. Like, oh yeah, hey, like that was wild. Like I kind of scared you. You kind of scared me. Like that was insane. So she tries to keep it going, try to keep the good vibes going, try to make him feel comfortable, and then eventually brings her up, shows him his place and his toys that he makes and stuff because he's a creator as well. And she talks about how she'll call her friends tomorrow. So making it seem like, hey, yeah, you're really doing me a solid. Thank you so much. And that's it. I won't really add. That's kind of what it comes off as. But obviously, we know that's not going to be the case, man. So now we're back at Decker's place. This scene is something that feeds into that theory later down the road. He's drunkenly playing with a piano. He's not good at the piano. And then out of nowhere, like he's kind of dozing off in a way. He has a bit of a daydream of a unicorn. Unicorn just running through the woods. He forces himself to go back to work and he's analyzing the Polaroids that Leon had in his room with some amazing zoom in technology that I don't even think we even come close to having in 2022. He's able to look up some details and get pictures of a face, find out kind of what they look like now and what they're looking for. So he takes the scale to somebody and has it looked at. And this is another thing that's like super weird, and I feel like we may not be too far from it one day, But the scale that he found, it belonged to Zora. She had a snake. On the scale, it had a serial number. A serial number for the snake, man. It is an item. And that leads him to a guy who sells artificial animals. And the guy is like an old mobster. He's like, hey, Louie, get this man a drink. He's dry. Lube him up. He's doing that kind of character because he's threatening him like, oh, your license is in check, man. Like, I don't know. Things seem kind of sketchy here. Like, is everything up to par? Like, you going to answer my questions or what? And of course, he answers questions. But while drinking at this bar, while he's on the job, he's still thinking about Rachel. He tries to call her. This shows, he's starting to care, but she hangs up on him. She doesn't really want to talk to him, so he's kind of getting rejected right now. He's getting the cold shoulder. But once the show starts to end at this bar, he's going in the back and trying to find Zora, pretending to be some guy, pretty much like he's HR. It's like, hey, have you been exploited? I know you're kind of a stripper right now, but hey, you ever feel like you've been exploited to get this job? But she catches on and she just knocks him on his ass and starts to run away. They have a really nice chasing in this crowded block. A lot of smoke, a lot of people, public traffic, regular traffic. So much is going on. It's this whole cat and mouse thing where he's trying to hurry up and find her and take her out. And he's just waving around his gun. He does not really care about public safety whatsoever. Eventually, he lets off a few shots. I don't know how he didn't shoot anyone, but he eventually does shoot and kill Zora. And she has a beautiful death scene. The way the lights reflect in this glass that she's smashing through while she gets shot and tries to get up and run away and get shot again. Like, it's a beautiful scene. The saxophone, the music, the slow motion, all really good stuff. But this is the first replicant that he actually kills. So 1 down, 3 to go, man. And after she falls dead, he eventually catches up and he's looking at the body. He's obviously shaken. Like, he seems very out of breath. He's kind of like looking all over the place. It's like he's kind of dazed. And you eventually see Leon also saw the whole thing go down. He's in the same area. But this is furthering that character growth. He's having a hard time. Killing that person really bugged him. And she even lets down a tear, man. It's sad. And this goes back to a question that Rachel asked him earlier. Like, hey, have you ever retired a human by accident? And I believe there was a pause, but now it's starting to get to him. The lines are blurred. He's only ever killed replicants. He never saw their humanity. So now, after killing one, he's like, that was pretty much like killing a person. Like, I I took away a life. You know, he's really contemplating that. It's weighing heavy on him. The first thing he does after killing her, going straight over to a bartender. Is like, hey, is this like he just gets what little bit of cash he has in his pocket. He's like, hey, is this like enough, like for a bottle? And he gets a big bottle. So he's shaking it. He wants to drink it down. Like, man, he's not thrilled about what just happened. Then the chief eventually meets up with him. He's like, hey man, you did a really good job. Good shit killing that replicant right there. That damn skin job. You did wonderful. And he's like, man, you look bad. You look as bad as the one you just killed right now. You got 4 more to go. And Deckard's like, wait a minute. What do you mean? I got 3. And the guy's like, well, the skin job that you found at Tyrell's, she ran away. Nobody's seen her since. She's AWOL. So you got 4, my man. You got 4 to go. And that bothers him too, because now he's like, man, the one I actually started to have a bit of a connection with, she's now on my list as well. Once they all part ways, that's when Leon jumps him. Leon just starts fucking up Deckard, asking him all these questions like, how long am I supposed to live? I was born at this time. And once Leon's going to give this killing blow, he gets shot. He gets shot by somebody else with Deckard's gun because it got knocked away from him in the fight. And the person it's revealed that killed him, Rachel. And she is visibly bothered that she just killed a replicant like her, but also a person. She sees him as a person. She doesn't look conflicted like Deckard does. They're back at their place, and what's Deckard doing? He's drinking. He's trying to, calm down, but he sees she's not okay. She's not even drinking her shot. And then the only thing he can muster to ask her is like, you got the shakes? Like, yeah, me too. So relatability, that is another layer to their relationship. He's relating to her. He's trying to make light and kind of laugh about it. Like, yeah, I get him pretty bad. And all he can say is, hey, it's all part of the business. Take a shot, And Rachel, she doesn't like that. And she literally says, I'm not in the business. I am the business. So obviously this bothers her way more than him. And there's a moment of silence. And even he sees that. He's like, damn. I'm trying to relate, but I can't. This person has it worse than I do. This replicant, somebody who I thought was less than, has heavier problems than I do right now. And he can't really think of much to say. And then Rachel asks him, if I run away, will you hunt me? Deckard's like, I owe you one. No, I wouldn't hunt you. And when he finally tells her that somebody else would, this is where my theory comes in. This is where the cup finally starts to fill up with water, guys. This is where you see the name on the Starbucks cup. They do the little twist and reveal. Boom, it is not your actual name. It is something else. Instead of Deckard, it's Derek. That's what they got. They wrote Derek on the cup. In this moment, he is out of focus in the background, talking to her. She's in the foreground, facing away from him. His eyes are lit up. And they did this purposely, man. And there's so many theories. This has been argued about since the 80s, man. But I believe Deckard is a replicant. I firmly believe he's a replicant. So this is the first time we see his eyes glow. And I feel like I have a few things that could chime in on this, obviously, from stuff I was stating earlier. He has a hard time expressing emotion. Over the course of the movie, he starts to develop more emotion and show more only after he meets a replicant that displays emotion and humanity. Now, going back to a point I said earlier, Deckard and Gaff, they don't want to work with other people. Deckard wants to be alone. Gaff wants to be alone too. But Gaff being a real person, if he really wants to work alone, he has to work with the one detective that nobody else wants to work with, another replicant. So that's another thing where I believe that comes into effect. It's the fact people know Deckard is a replicant. Because I always found it weird that this is his job, but they threatened to arrest him if he didn't come in the beginning of the movie to go do the job. And he goes and does the job, reluctantly, but he does. So that would be him going AWOL if he wasn't doing his duty. So I feel like that's something right there. So I got a few points as to he could be a replicant. All right, so now going back to the scene. She's asking him more information. She wants to know about her. She wants to know how long she has to live. She doesn't know anything. She's like, hey, did you happen to see any of my stuff? Do you know anything? He said, no. Like, oh, you're a cop and all this other stuff. Like, you should know this. Like, no, it's classified. I haven't seen anything. She eventually just asks him flat out, do you ever take that test yourself? It's a moment of silence. He kind of passes out on the bed, but then it goes up to this next scene. And this is where I see Sean Young is a babe. I never really dug her hairstyle in most of this movie, but man, releasing those curls and her eyes are glowing and that saxophone's playing, that soft saxophone in the background. I'm like, yo, I'm 100% down with anything, really. It can not be real. It could be an alien. I've seen aliens in Star Wars and other films where I'm like, you know what? I'd hit that. Homeboy fucked a Martian once. That's the type of vibes I'm trying to put out, you know? Calling it back to Jay and Silent Bob, man. Clerks too. But yeah, like science fiction, horror, stuff like that, super open-minded. I also think it has some of the best representation of women. That's a whole other thing, but I really think so. You see very strong, independent, and smart women in those genres. I know sometimes they have some things against them, you know, but I mean, characters are going to be characters. But there are plenty of examples of some pretty dope women in those genres. But while she's letting down her hair and stuff, she's sitting at the piano and starts playing it. And then Deckard wakes up confused, like, whoa, I hear piano music, like somebody's playing the piano. He goes and sits by her, and she's saying, I never knew how to play. I wasn't even sure if I did. I have memories of it, but I don't know if I can. And then earlier, like how he was saying, like, oh, those memories aren't yours. That's Tyrell's niece's. And then he looks at her and tells her, you play beautifully. You. At this moment is where we get 100% confirmation that he acknowledges her humanity. He addressed her as a person. And he leans in and gives her, you know, a kiss on the cheek. He is showing his affection. He is completely let his guard down. He is being vulnerable and open with this woman. Now, this is where it gets a little weird. It gets into this, she's wanting to leave, but then he like makes her stay. He keeps shutting the door when she tries to leave. This is where they have that sexual tension. I see it as she's inexperienced. She doesn't know how to show this emotion. I don't think she knows how to show love or sexual attraction. So he kind of leads her into it, like forcefully, like sternly. I think this is something a lot of people would like. I mean, Harrison Ford's like, he's a good looking dude. He's a man's man and like, you know, got hairy chest, like kind of exposed, you know? And he's just like, tell me to kiss you. And then she's like, kiss me. Tell me again. Kiss me. I mean, of course, it's way more sexual tension than me just like saying it to myself. But yeah, and then out of nowhere, she fucking goes ham with it. She's just like, yo, put your hands on me. Like literally just put your hands on me. I'm like, whoa, all right. And then we're gonna switch off from there to some other characters, but pretty sure those guys did the deed. No way they didn't. I swear to God, if that dude didn't get laid, I will cut off my left nut. But we're cutting back to Pris, JF Sebastian, and Roy finally shows up and he gets to meet JF Sebastian and finds out more about him. They all get to sit around and talk and see that they have similar problems. JF Sebastian has a deficiency. He looks a lot older than what he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be 25, but he has a aging deficiency with his glands. So he looks really old and they're like, yo, we can relate. We're dying fast too. And so they want to go see Tyrell. They convince him to go see Tyrell. And he's amazed by them. He likes them. He helped created them. So he's like, yeah, you know, I can do you guys a solid. Let's go figure it out. They eventually go to Tyrell's. And he's not the least bit surprised. He's just like, I thought you would have found me sooner. They have this whole back and forth, you know, like, oh, we want to make some modifications. I want you to extend my life. And he's like, no, I can't. You're already made. There's nothing I can do, and everything else we've tried, I can't. This is where it starts to really show the intelligence of Roy Batty, talking about proteins and all this other stuff. Are these different examples and experiments they could have tried? And Tyrell's like, we've tried them. We did them. They didn't work. Created viruses, killed them. We couldn't do it. So I made you the best that I could. He's like, yeah, but not to last. And then Tyrell just utters that quote that's unfortunate to plenty of people who have died super young that were incredible. The light that burns twice as bright burns half as long, and you have burned so very, very bright. So he's aware of Roy. He knows exactly who he is. He knows his creations. And he tries to butter him up like, yeah, you know, you're amazing. You're beautiful. You're perfect. Like, you've done great. But after finding out that he can't be helped, Roy just decides to kill him. He gives him the kiss of death and starts to like crush his skull and eye gouge him. And JF Sebastian is in the background like, oh shit, like what have I done? And eventually he's killed too. He's killed off screen, but Roy goes and kills him too. And all of this is leading up to the third act of the movie, or this is kind of where the third act really starts to pop off. We see Deckard go to Sebastian's place. He's aware that they are there because they found Tyrell's body. They found JF Sebastian. It's like, okay, he could be at their place. He goes there. Him and Pris kind of duke it out. He kills Pris. And then Roy finally shows up. He sees Pris is dead. Him and Deckard are around in this complex all by themselves due to the housing crisis. And so they're both hunting one another. Roy eventually finds Deckard and takes his gun and breaks his fingers, his shooting hand fingers, and gives him back the gun. And Deckard can't even hold the gun anymore, so he puts it in his left hand, and he can't even shoot straight or anything. And the whole time, Roy is dying. His hand is slowing down. It's kind of like he has like a bit of arthritis. Like it has a hard time closing. And so he's trying to keep the blood flow going. And after some more time of Roy hunting down Deckard, Deckard's trying to get away because he's injured. There's not much he can do. He's climbing around. He eventually loses his gun. Roy starts to hunt Deckard just like how Deckard was hunting the replicants. He's all around. You can hear his voice echoing through the halls with howls and talking, kind of taunting him a bit here and there, because Deckard feels that impending doom that he's probably going to get killed. He wants him to feel that. And the same thing with his hand, how Roy's hand is kind of the first thing going. That's the first thing he took from Deckard was his hand. Knowing that his time is nearing, his hand is getting harder and harder to open and close. He starts to bite at himself and eventually finds a nail. And this is where some of the Christian imagery starts to come in. He takes a nail and pierces it through his hand to get more of the blood flow. And you can see he can actually open his hand a little bit. And it's causing pain, so it's keeping him like there. I would say kind of like adrenaline or something. It's getting him going, like, yeah, no, like not yet. He's trying to buy as much time as he can to where he can go kill Deckard. Deckard eventually makes his way to the top of a building and tries to get away to another building. And Roy, he sees him, he meets him at the other building, and he grabs a dove. He's just holding it the whole time. And I believe it's symbolic of what's to come. And while Deckard's hanging off the side of the roof because he kind of missed when he was trying to jump, Roy is just looking at him and just like contemplating. But while watching him struggle to stay alive, he says, "Quite an experience to live in fear, isn't it? That's what it is to be a slave." So, another point of relation from Deckard to replicants. It's piling it on, man. You know, he starts to feel that. And Roy sees him slipping even more, but right before he's about to fall to his death, he catches him and saves him. But I also want to mention really quick, he saves him with the hand that was struggling. The hand that is injured, the one that has the nail and the blood through it. Very heavy Christian imagery. He saves him just with that one hand, lifts him up all the way with his strength and puts him back on the roof and sits with him. Obviously, Deckard is very confused as to why this happens, but Roy sits with him and starts to talk. And this is where one of the most iconic monologues start to happen. And this is the scene where I get the name to my podcast. And it starts like this. I've seen things
you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain. Time to die.
And the beautiful music, Tears in Rain, right there. I love that so much. That is such a great scene. But Deckard is kind of just in awe, and he's sitting there just looking at his lifeless body. And when his body finally dies, his grip is loose, and that dove just flies away up into the sky. And it's a nice shot of it. Because he's a replicant and theoretically, or technically, doesn't have a soul, that was his soul that he was holding on to. That was the life he was holding on to. In the last few moments, he shared it with someone else. I believe that's why he saved Deckard because he saw Deckard could relate in that moment of facing near death. He saw himself and the will to live. So he saves him. But then he knows by saving this man, I leave my mark. The life that this man has is something I gave him. And the lesson that he learned were not bad people. He gets to carry that on with him. So as long of a life that Deckard may have, that is how long Roy's will be. So he extended his life. He got exactly what he wanted, the extension. It was through somebody else, but he did it. And that's something we do as humans. We're not going to be around forever, man. It's all about the memories we make with other people, and we pass them on to other people. Some of us are immortal because of the bloodlines that carry on throughout. Nowadays, more so immortal because of the internet. This podcast is probably going to outlive me, most definitely. And so, like, this shows he was human. This really puts in that debate of, are they alive? Are they not? Are they a person? Do they have humanity? Are they worthy of being alive and living a life that they want to live, being free? All of that right there really summed up in one scene. I mean, of course, it took the whole movie, but in that scene right there, man, a beautiful scene. And I swear, it almost makes me cry every time. Rutger Hauer, a great performance, man. And it's such a shame that we lost him. But like I said, it was oddly poetic. 2019, he passed away. In the movie 2019, he passes away. And while Deckard is sitting there, Gaff comes up. He's like, hey, I guess you're done. Like, you did a man's job. Another line, which is oddly weird. Why would he say that? If this is a job that he does all the time or something that we know of, we don't know how long he's really been with the company or anything. You did a man's job. That to me, that's another little breadcrumb right there that he could be a replicant. And Deckard's like, yo, I'm finished. That's it. I'm done. And Gaff gives him back his gun. And Gaff, he knows about Rachel. He knows everything. That's why I feel like he's been watching them. I feel like that's why he's his partner as well. Because he's there to make sure he does his job. If not, Gaff is probably there to kill him in the whole replicant theory. But he turns to him and said, it's too bad she won't live. But then again, who does? He's telling Deckard, I know, and it's all right. I'm not hunting you. That's what he does. Deckard rushes home, gets Rachel, and they're going to be on the run because you got to think she is a replicant. So they have to. Of course, he would die by association for harboring someone, but then again, if the theory is correct, he's also a replicant, so that's two replicants on the run right there. But this is the main, not the main thing, but this is another big breadcrumb. While they're leaving and he's super paranoid, he's scoping out the hallway, Rachel knocks over a unicorn origami. The only person that we know that's been doing origami is Gaff. Gaff is Deckard's partner who knows him, whose possible job is watching after Deckard to make sure he does his job and doesn't go AWOL. He left a unicorn. Now, Deckard never talked about the unicorn, so why would Gaff leave him a unicorn? You know what I mean? Why would he know that unless he already knew his memories or his dreams? Because Deckard wasn't really asleep. To me, that kind of solidifies it. I'm not 100% sure because if you go online anywhere, so many people are like, he is, he isn't. But I love the theory that he is. He discovered his humanity by discovering his own kind is capable of humanity. And then the next one, the sequel, gets even wilder with those concepts. I love the theory of him being a replicant because, man, that could easily flow into 2049, Blade Runner 2049, and it would be amazing. But that's the whole movie. I hope you guys enjoyed me summarizing it up, pretty much going to you almost scene by scene. You know, I really appreciate if anybody's listened to this. I think this might be the format I start to do it. I'm not sure. I can't do this for every movie, but this is a movie I definitely wanted to go through and talk about a lot. But man, I loved it. I love watching this movie. If you haven't seen it and you love the sci-fi genre or the cyberpunk genre in general, watch it. It is a beautiful movie. It is an incredible movie. It is definitely one of my favorite movies of all time. I hope I kept you guys entertained a bit here and there and made you question your own humanity and stuff. Now, I want you guys to go live, laugh, and love as well, okay? But not until I give you guys another fortune cookie. And here it is. Don't confuse the learning tool with the lesson. Do with that what you will. But until next time, be excellent, be kind, subscribe to the podcast.